I heard your company is pulling out. The pay has been decreasing over the past 3 months. It seems like things are finally getting dangerous.
Yeah, that's what this is about. There's something I wanted to discuss regarding that. I should have consulted you sooner, but you know how it's been with us lately. That's why it's been so hard to talk.
Consult? You're just going to tell me to work because your company is gone, right?
The company is gone? Well, I suppose that's one way to put it. But what I wanted to discuss isn't about that.
What's this? Are we finally kicking this woman out? I told you before, right? Her company is about to go under. Looks like it's true. I married her because her parents were big shots, despite her being below average in looks, but this is just unacceptable. Sure, being raised in America and being good at your job is cool, but raising the bar with that half background and then having this face? If only she were pretty, there could be some redemption.
Both of you, what are you saying?
I married you expecting money. And now your company is gone? The American side must be doing poorly too, right? A wife who doesn't bring in a dime is useless. Get out. When I told my college friends my mom was a mix, they all imagined someone stunningly beautiful. Introducing you is embarrassing, so stop being my mom.
As soon as they learned my company was disappearing, my husband and his daughter turned on me like the flip of a switch. The cruel words thrown at me by the two of them began to break my heart. I had a lot to say, but given everything, I no longer have the energy.
Got it. You want me to divorce you and leave this house, right? That's right, you're quick to understand, which helps. Don't regret this.
If my husband wants a divorce, I'll give him what he wants. I will simply leave quietly, and he will surely come to regret it deeply. My name is Emily. My mother is Japanese, and my father is American, so people call me Emily. While my parents live in the US, I've been living in Japan for about 10 years due to work. My father is the CEO of a company that deals with software development, import, and sales in America. I came here to work at the Japanese branch of my father's company. I was thrilled to move there because I loved Japanese anime. When I came to Japan, people might have expected a beautiful woman because of my mixed heritage, but that wasn't the case. I'm plain looking and not good at socializing outside of work, so I think people found me hard to approach. In school, I used to spend time alone in the corner of the classroom and leave as soon as classes ended, faster than anyone else. You could say I was what the Japanese call an introvert. Even after coming to Japan, I couldn't suddenly change who I was, so I continued my introverted ways. Being alone isn't new to me, so I've gotten used to it. That's why I never tried to expand my social circles unnecessarily. Rather, I thought it was something I couldn't do and had given up. Maybe it was pity from the gods, but at the age of 37, 5 years after coming to Japan, I was given a wonderful encounter. Wow, you work at a software development company, that's amazing. I also work in the IT sector, but I haven't heard of your company, sorry for my ignorance. No, don't be. Our company is such that unless you're involved in servers and networks, you wouldn't come across it, so it's natural not many people know of it. And I'm not in development, I handle mostly import and sales. So, I'm not that amazing. The Dart bar I often visited was frequented by people working in Japan from abroad. As a result, the place was friendly, and people would strike up conversations easily, even with someone they met for the first time. I'm usually a loner, but there are times even I want to talk to someone. During such times, I visited the Dart bar, where I met the man who would become my husband. Emily, don't you play darts? I'm just here to drink, I don't play darts. Are you drinking tea? Yes, I'm always dragged here by my senior from work, so I don't drink alcohol and don't play darts either. Must be tough with all the office politics. My husband checked the time on his smartphone, placed his tea on the counter, and said, "What? You're leaving already? It's only 7 p.m. My daughter, who's in middle school, should be coming back from tutoring soon. Since my wife's not around, I need to get dinner ready. That's why I manage to get out of company gatherings around this time. It's a perfect excuse, isn't it?" I couldn't help but laugh at my husband's joke-laden words. Seeing my reaction, he gave me a light smile before excusing himself to his senior colleagues to leave for home. From that day on, every time I went to the darts bar, I started looking for my husband, and whenever he found me, he would always come over to talk. "You work at your dad's company, right? That's amazing." No, it might seem like a big company because we have branches overseas, but it's not that big. It's like a small to medium-sized business in the US. Despite being in a darts bar, we never played darts, always standing at the end of the counter enjoying our drinks and conversation. Every time we met, my husband and I grew closer, and we started meeting outside the darts bar too. It was natural for us to start dating. As I approached 40, I was finally experiencing springtime in my life. But I couldn't just revel in excitement. To continue my relationship with my husband, I had to build a relationship with his daughter, Linda. She was 15 at the time, a middle school student about to face her exams, a time when one needs to be particularly considerate, so I was worried. But I soon realized my worries were unnecessary. "Emily, you lived in the US until 5 years ago, right? Being mixed, competent at your job, you're full of cool factors. Why are you dating my dad?" "Hey, don't beat me up while pretending to compliment Emily. You're right, it's not good to speak ill of Keith. Besides, I'm not that cool." I started having dinner with my husband and his daughter at their home. The scene of us enjoying our meal together, joking around, was just an ordinary family dinner. I was overjoyed by this ordinariness. With a good relationship with his daughter, we decided to get married 2 years into our relationship. Everything had been going smoothly, but since it was an international marriage, things got a bit hectic from there. Especially meeting each other's parents was tough. I took my husband and his parents to the US, but since neither my husband nor his in-laws could speak English or understand the culture, it was difficult. "Wow, this is your father's company's material? It's all in English, I can't understand a thing. So, how should we handle the dowry? In terms of weddings, baby showers, graduations, and other celebrations, giving tens of thousands of dollars as we do in Japan is not a common culture here, so it's not necessary." My mother and I, who understood both languages and cultures, were extremely busy. However, the fact that my mother and I were so busy meant that my husband and his parents were trying to understand my background and my parents. While it was hectic, I felt a comforting fatigue. After our marriage went smoothly, I started living with my husband and his daughter as a family of 3. I thought we were going to start a happy life together in Japan, but gradually, the weather started to change. A year after our marriage, when his daughter became a high school student, my husband made a suggestion. Linda's high school entrance exams made me realize my late work hours put too much pressure on her. The college entrance exams are going to be even tougher, so maybe one of us should spend more time at home, right? That might be true, but... This conversation had been recurring whenever we were alone in the living room. We had been delaying decisions on difficult topics. My husband seemed to be suggesting it was time to make a decision with a serious look on his face. Seeing his expression, I wondered if we could delay our decision until next year when our daughter starts preparing for college entrance exams. Even though attitudes are changing, in Japan, it's still common for women to quit their jobs and take care of the household and children. This situation seemed like my husband was asking me to quit my job or find an earlier job. But that's not the case in our family. That's why I was struggling. "Your idea is for me to continue working while he switches to a job that allows him to come home earlier, right? That would be the logical solution, considering our situation. Your salary is higher than mine, and you work at your dad's company. It wouldn't make sense for you to switch jobs, right? That makes sense based on the situation, but are you okay with that, Keith? You've been with your company for over 20 years, haven't you? If it's for Linda, I'm okay with it." I couldn't meet my husband's serious gaze and averted my eyes, feeling apologetic for making him quit the job he had dedicated himself to. But it seemed he was prepared. I was ashamed that I was still trying to delay answering, not realizing his resolve. "All right, let's do that." I gave in to my husband's determination and accepted his proposal on the spot. "Did both of you bring your lunch?" Of course, I did. How could I forget? Sorry. I forgot mine. As our daughter rushed out of the house, potentially late, I took off my shoes I was putting on at the entrance and hurried back to the kitchen to fetch the lunch my husband had prepared. My husband quit his job and became a part-time house husband. With him taking care of the household and looking after our daughter, I could focus on work. Also, as he spent more time at home, he was able to support our daughter properly, and she smoothly passed her college entrance exams. It felt wrong to have him quit his job, but it might have been a good choice for our family. While packing the lunch that was left on the kitchen table into my bag, I was grateful to my husband. However, 3 years into our marriage, the situation had drastically changed, and I was starting to regret the decision for my husband to become a stay-at-home dad. I'm home. Huh? What's for dinner?
It's on the table, isn't it?
Cup noodles? Again?
Can't help it. Being a house husband is busy. Besides, it looks like your salary went down this month too. Is your company okay?
The company?
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't worry.
If my salary has been decreasing steadily over the past 2 years and has significantly dropped in the last 2 months, of course, I'm going to worry. I quit my job, remember? You need to work hard and earn. We still have Linda's tuition to think about. This cup noodles is also part of our savings plan, so just bear with it and eat.
Okay. Unable to respond to my husband, I poured hot water into the cup noodles while glancing at the 2 sets of washed dishes. The husband who had been kind in the first year of our marriage had gradually changed his attitude by the second year, and now, in the third year, dinner was often cup noodles, and instead of preparing lunch, he would hand me a $5 bill. The change in attitude wasn't limited to my husband.
Hey! Just because you came home early, don't take a bath before me. The bathwater gets all granny smelling, you know.
Oh, sorry. But do I really smell that bad?
Don't talk back, just say yes, ma'am, and keep quiet.
When I decided to take an early bath because I managed to come home early, my daughter barged into the changing room and started yelling at me. She chased me out of the changing room, throwing my clothes into the hallway, and I could hear the sound of her forcefully closing the bathroom door from inside. Being kicked out suddenly, I hadn't completely dried off, so I quietly returned to the changing room. It seemed like my daughter was still in the bath, probably planning to change the water. I hurriedly dried myself off, threw the bath towel into the laundry basket, and quietly left the changing room to dress in the hallway. My daughter had started treating me like a complete granny. Well, to my 20-year-old daughter, a 42-year-old me might seem like a granny. It was only a few years ago she used to say I was cool, but now that seems like a distant memory. Anyone else would snap at their husband and daughter after being treated like this at home. But they are family, so I want to avoid making our relationship even worse by losing my temper. But that's just an excuse, the real reason is probably because I'm inherently introverted. In this situation, my husband and daughter have teamed up against me, making it a 2-against-1 scenario. As an introvert, I stand no chance against them. I'm afraid of conflict and isolation, so I keep running away from problems. How's married life? There's no problem. Keith takes care of the house, and Linda is attending college properly. I force a smile and lie to my parents during our occasional video calls. Talking to my parents has always been one of my joys, but now it's a painful time filled with lies because I can't share my troubles about my husband and daughter with them. If I told my parents about my problems, I'm sure all my pent-up frustration and sadness would come pouring out uncontrollably. Moreover, my parents are across the ocean, so I can't easily rely on them, nor do I want to worry them by being so far away. So, I force down the weakness rising in my throat and shove it back down inside. I should yell at my husband and daughter, or talk to my parents about my troubles, even if they're across the ocean. Some people might find that frustrating, but I can't do it because I'm introverted. But I know that not taking action and not properly explaining why my salary is decreasing are making things worse. However, being passive isn't always bad. Sometimes, by not acting, problems resolve themselves. This time, it ended with my husband self-destructing. One day, when I returned from work, as usual, there were cup noodles on the kitchen table. As I sighed and picked up the cup, my husband suddenly spoke from behind.
The one who wants to sigh is me.
Startled, I jolted and the toppings in the cup noodles rattled like maracas.
Oh, you're here.
You startled me.
I heard from a former colleague that your company is pulling out. These past 3 months, your salary has been decreasing, so it seems things are really going downhill.
Yes, that matter. I've been meaning to discuss it with you. I should have brought it up earlier, but with you and Linda acting the way you have recently, I just couldn't.
Discussion? You're just going to tell me that because your company is gone. I need to work, right?
The company disappearing? Well, yes, that's what it boils down to. But that's not what I wanted to discuss.
What?
Are we finally kicking this woman out? As I was about to explain the reason behind the salary issues I had been hesitant to discuss with my husband, my daughter, having overheard our conversation, came into the kitchen. She stood by my husband's side as if it were the most natural thing, fully intending to blame me together with him. I told you before, right? Her company's going under. Seems like it's true. Really? Then there's no point in staying in this house, right?
Right? I quit my job because of this. Seriously, Dad is too pitiable.
Unable to find an opportunity to interject, I could only listen to their rapid-fire conversation. Even now, my introverted tendencies kick in, leaving me feeling pathetic. But as I remained silent, they kept uttering unbelievable things.
Having a mom who's a mix was supposed to be cool, but this is just sad. Indeed, being raised in America and capable at your job is impressive, but if that's paired with this face, there's no saving grace.
Both of you. What are you saying? Although my voice was faint, I finally managed to interject into their conversation. However, my strained words only accelerated their onslaught.
We married expecting money from you. Now that your company is gone, what now? I guess the American side isn't doing well either. A wife who can't bring in a penny is useless. My friends imagine a supermodel when I say my mom's a mix. It's embarrassing to introduce you as my mom, so please stop being my mom.
The heartless words thrown at me by the two of them shattered my spirit. There were so many things I wanted to say, but I no longer had the energy.
Understood. So you want me to divorce and leave this house, right? That's right. It's good that you understand quickly, it saves us trouble. Dad became a house husband so you could continue working, but you failed to fulfill your role and now your job is gone, so you're going to rely on Dad? You're really the worst. No wonder Dad wants to dump you.
My daughter looked at me with pure hatred, her face twisted like a demon's. My husband smirked beside her. Seeing his expression, a surge of anger rose within me. When had I last felt such intense anger?
You'll regret this.
For the first time in my life, I raised my voice at my husband, slamming the cup noodles onto the kitchen table as if to make a statement, then turned to gather my things and leave their presence. If my husband wanted a divorce, I'd grant his wish. I would leave silently, and he would surely regret it deeply. After that, my husband and I divorced. Since it was an international marriage, there were some complications, but generally, if it followed Japanese law, there weren't many issues. When divorcing my former husband, we split our savings accumulated over 5 years of marriage. Each of us took about $35,000. I would have preferred not to give my ex-husband the money, but rules are rules. Most of this money, I presumed, would go towards Linda's remaining 2 years of tuition, so I didn't fight it too hard. However, by giving my husband the money, I was reminded of how much of a lost cause he really was. 3 months after the divorce, with my company gone, I had returned to the US. I've spent more time here than in Japan, but living there for a while still left me feeling odd. While contemplating a future visit to Japan, my daughter suddenly video called me. "Mom, help me."
What's wrong?
The image on my laptop was grainy, but her distressed expression was clear. I had guessed it involved my ex-husband, but the details were beyond my expectations. "I was deceived by Dad. I'm so sorry for everything I said to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
She kept apologizing, unable to explain what my ex-husband had done. I calmed her and first tried to understand what had happened in these 3 months.
The tuition payment is due soon, right? Dad says I have to pay it myself. If I do, he says I must pay him back with interest once I get a job.
Why? I gave enough money for your tuition when we divorced.
He says that's his 2 to 3 years living expenses. And after raising me, he says I should take care of him once I graduate and start working.
He wants you to replace me? That's impossible for a first-year employee.
He said he took me in for that reason, and if I don't fulfill my role, I'm just like you.
Hearing my daughter's story, I found myself fidgeting without realizing it. I was pacing, a habit I picked up not from my time in Japan, but a common one in the US when agitated. Realizing I was pacing, I understood just how angry I was.
Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't think Dad was like that. So, I believed everything he said about you, and I started to hate you. He always said you were ugly, and I went along with it. But when I really think about it, you weren't such a bad person.
I'm not angry, so calm down. You're not making much sense. What exactly did Keith tell you?
He said he didn't want to quit his job, but you forced him to. And after the company collapsed, you wanted him to work.
I muted the call to let out a heavy sigh, then quickly unmuted. I had a hunch when I was pushed to divorce, seeing my ex-husband's smirking face and my daughter's accusations, all of which were aligned with his words. That vague feeling turned into conviction upon hearing my daughter's words. My ex-husband had painted me as a bad woman to divorce me and had been planning to live off me. But after realizing the company was moving out, he discarded me to revert to his original plan of living off my daughter. While it's true my daughter believed him and said hurtful things, it's also a fact. But if I consider when my ex-husband started implanting a bad image of me in her, she was still quite young, around her senior year of high school. At that age, still a child, especially raised by a single father, it's understandable she believed him. I know the kind, bright daughter she was before being manipulated. Therefore, my daughter, like me, was a victim of my ex-husband. My anger at my ex-husband for deceiving her and causing her such sorrow resurfaced. If the misunderstanding about me is cleared, that's enough. It seems like you've reflected on it, so I'll forgive you. Don't worry. I'll help Linda. I ended the video call and was relieved to see my once kind daughter return. I also noticed my pacing had stopped. But my anger towards my ex-husband hadn't vanished. He would realize his mistake soon enough. I looked forward to that moment. 3 months after my daughter reached out for help, my ex-husband contacted me. What's the meaning of this? How do you have so much money? What are you talking about? I knew what he meant, but wanting to see his panicked state, I pretended ignorance. He seemed very agitated, leaning forward so his face filled the camera. Linda suddenly left the house. She shouldn't have that kind of money, but she said you're paying for her tuition and rent. Your company collapsed, and you fled back to the US, so where did you get that money? From your parents? Are they giving it to you? Don't be rude. Unlike someone, I don't live off my family. I'm working and sending my own money to Linda, so you have no right to complain. How do you have such leeway? Weren't you struggling for work just like me after the company closed? Your claims about the company collapsing or Dad's business doing poorly were fundamentally flawed. What do you mean? The company you had in Japan is gone, isn't it? The company didn't fold due to poor management, but rather, it was a strategic decision to relocate to another country considering Japan's economic situation and future prospects. That means... It's just that we decided to cut ties with the Japanese market. Naturally, as the company scaled down, work decreased, and since we were on an incentive system, it's obvious that salaries would decrease too. While other employees received various guarantees, I didn't, as I already had a significant role lined up and was content with just my base salary. After all, it was originally Dad's company, so I wasn't too bothered. Why didn't you tell me this before? To explain that, I need to start with my current job. I mentioned earlier that I had a big role coming up. That's becoming the CEO of Dad's company. CEO? You mean, the president?
My ex-husband, too shocked by my words, slammed the desk and stood up. He moved out of the camera's frame, and only his midsection was visible on my computer screen. After a few seconds, he sat back down, a look of defeat returning to his face. Here, thinking to irk him further, I decided to delve into a rather unpleasant topic.
It's a bit different, but think of it as being similar to a president. I'm currently an underling, eyeing the CEO position. When I get there, my annual salary might be around $11 million. Annual salary? $11 million. Don't lie. Even $1 million a year is incredibly wealthy. Well, in America, making $11 million a year might not be as uncommon as in Japan.
What's going on? I thought Japan was leading the world. Hearing about the $11 million, my ex-husband seemed to lose even more spirit. He couldn't even lift his head, and his crown was visible on my screen. Indeed, earning $1 million a year in Japan would be considered affluent. But in Japan, households with assets over $4.5 million represent just about 0.17% of all households. In that context, my supposed annual salary of $11 million is an extraordinary figure in Japan. However, when looking at the global scale, it's not as extraordinary. Comparing the salaries of major company presidents in Japan and the US, there's a 16-fold difference. The median annual salary for top US company executives is over $20 million. If there are people making $20 million annually, my $11 million doesn't seem that significant. An annual salary of $11 million. Why did you keep such important information from me?
The fact that I'm becoming CEO meant relocating here. It wasn't easy to just bring up moving you and Linda to America, right? You thought I was jobless and treated me horribly due to the company's closure. How could I share this with you after all that, especially when you accused me of relying on my wealth?
Did I lose out on $11 million a year? My ex-husband tried to lift his head but overdid it, looking up at the ceiling. Now, his throat and chin were on my screen. I delivered the final blow with a sneer.
As for me, well, how are you doing? I heard from Linda. Struggling with job hunting, aren't you? A 5-year gap is fatal in the fast-paced IT industry. She said you begged her for help because your salary is so low despite the long hours. You have no choice but to work in a toxic environment, knowing fully well what it entails. That's right. Coming home on the last train every night, earning barely more than a new recruit. It's hard to save for retirement, and it's wearing me down both mentally and physically. Hey, you're making $11 million a year, right? Help me out like you do for Linda. Why should I help you? Besides, I'm not making $11 million yet. But you're getting a lot as a CEO candidate, right? That's why you can afford Linda's tuition and rent. Well, yes, but I have no intention of helping you. Keep slurping your instant noodles. Why? When Linda went to pick up her things, she saw how your trash bin was overflowing with instant noodle cups. You've become so exhausted from work that you can't even cook anymore. Too bad. If you had a family, someone might have cooked for you. Please, don't leave me alone. At least convince Linda not to abandon me. I need to get back to work, so I'm going to hang up now. Wait! It's already night. Don't lie and hang up on me.
I ended the call without a word. It might be around 11 p.m. in Japan, but it's just past 1 p.m. here. My ex-husband must be really desperate not to consider the time difference. Satisfied with seeing him distressed and panicked, I stretched and got ready to go back to work. My ex-husband seems to have continued working at the toxic job. But at 46, with a 5-year gap, he quickly reached his limit. He quit his job and started looking for a new one. However, due to his age and the gap, plus quitting his last job within a year, his job search became even more challenging. Eventually, realizing he couldn't find a job in the IT industry that met his conditions, he ended up working at a supermarket, a continuation of his part-time experiences. But this job is no less challenging. Learning new skills at 46 is hard, and he's being badmouthed by younger coworkers. Additionally, the job requires early mornings and is physically demanding. Now, my ex-husband is mentally and physically drained. Quitting again would only make his next job search harder. Thus, he continues to live off instant noodles, barely getting by day to day. If he had a family, he might have received support, but since I divorced him and our daughter left home with my support, she intends to cut ties with him. Unless he finds a new partner, he'll remain alone. But given his current situation, it seems unlikely he'll find someone new, so he'll have to manage on his own. My daughter and I occasionally video chat. She wants to be involved in software or app development after graduating from college and is currently studying hard. I'm working hard, too, preparing for my role as CEO of Dad's company. There are some differences in the system from the Japanese company, and I'm facing various challenges. Despite the difficulties, I plan to visit Japan once a year to stay motivated for work. The main reason for my visits is to see Linda, but I also enjoy anime and like to shop for merchandise. I'll be staying in her room when I visit Japan. Next month will be my first stay in her room. I'm motivated to work hard today, looking forward to my trip to Japan next month.